It's showtime.
What's up, good people? And welcome to the Frank Harris Show, the biggest, the baddest, the best, and the most provocative show on earth. Happy Monday. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? Hopefully well. By the way, I gotta shout out one of my new subscribers. We got over 30,000 and we keep growing. You understand what I'm saying? But I want to shout out, and it's KESHAVA 108. I'm not sure the proper pronunciation, if it's Kashava, but it's KESHAVA 108. I gotta show love. Let me tell you why. All right. This person clicked on one of my posts, okay, didn't agree with what I was posting about. We went back and forth a little bit, again, not disrespectfully, in a great spirit of debate and conversation. Afterwards, they decided to follow the page, which I'm very appreciative of, and then sent me another message recently talking about how they're happy that they followed and they got some good information on another post that I posted later on. Shout out. That's what it's all about. I love to show love to people that show love. I appreciate it. Let's keep going, baby. That being said, question. The GOAT debate, the GOAT conversations are always conversations that are very controversial, okay? And I don't understand, and I'm not sure anybody understands, and I would love to get everybody's comments and takes on this. What determines GOATs? How do we measure? What are the best metrics to utilize when we measure who are the GOATs in various sports or in whatever it may be, whether it be hip hop, sports? How do you determine who are the GOATs? Okay. I'm going to give you a great example. The LeBron James, Michael Jordan conversation always comes up. Who's the GOAT? LeBron James or Michael Jordan? It's a GOAT conversation that always comes up. LeBron James, 4 rings. Michael Jordan, 6 rings. LeBron James been in 10 finals and won 4. Michael Jordan, 6, won all 6 of his. Never even got past a game 6. Never even got into a game 7. He was so dominant. LeBron James' longevity-wise ended up, and he is the leading scorer in NBA history. Michael Jordan has performed better in the playoffs, more MVPs, et cetera, et cetera. How do you determine? Is it rings? Okay. Is it notoriety and fame? Is it popularity? Is it because if you go by rings, Bill Russell has 11 and went to 12 finals. So, and he was a dominant player offensively, good offensively, very good defensively, and one of the best players in NBA history. So it's not like he was a guy who went to 11 finals, went to 12 finals, won 11 and didn't contribute, right? He was the most important piece in those 11 rings, right? Other guys on this team like Sam Jones, I believe it is, went to 10 championships, but we don't put him in that conversation, obviously. So Bill Russell was fantastic. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 6 rings, and was a very integral part. And he is who LeBron James unseated for the number 1 scorer in NBA history. So how do you determine who's the GOAT in the NBA? All right, I'm going with Jordan. That's my opinion. Would love to hear yours. I'm going with Jordan. LeBron loses too much in the finals for me. Great player, but I'm going with Michael Jordan because he imposed a different level of fear. And by the way, some people even like Kobe Bryant too, another guy who people put in that conversation. Wilt Chamberlain, before I move on, what about the great Wilt Chamberlain? Okay, as you talk about who's the best in the sport, no one is more prolific than he is in terms of records. He has records that people will never reach. Will anybody score 100 points? I think somebody may do that, but Wilt averaged over 50 points in a season and 30 rebounds. I mean, Wilt has records that will never be broken, you assume. The great Wilt Chamberlain, and probably the most dominant and feared player in NBA history. Should he be in that conversation? Weigh in, talk to me, let me know. Let's switch to another sport as we talk about GOATs. And we talked about tennis. As you know, I love tennis. We got 3 guys, okay, who we always talk about as the GOATs of tennis. You got the great Djokovic, who just lost to Alcaraz in the finals of Wimbledon for the 2nd year in a row. We have the great Rafa Nadal, great Spaniard, the best clay court player ever, won so many French Open titles, was so great to the game, a great ambassador of the game. And then you have the tennis favorite, who is the great Roger Federer. He's probably made the most money in the sport, okay? And again, I said before, the bridge between the old school and new school, Federer was an amazing player, the most beloved tennis player of all time. He's probably the player that people point to and say, he's my favorite player. But Djokovic has 24 slams, Nadal has 22, Federer has 20, okay? Slams seem to be the standard in tennis. Slams, the standard. Now, Djokovic is not as beloved as Nadal, Federer are. Federer and Nadal, two beloved figures. And tennis is the gentleman sport, and those two epitomize being gentlemen. They took the sport very seriously. They were very respectful to their opponents, and they epitomized the work, the effort, the determination, the gentleman nature of the sport. Those two guys epitomize that, Federer, Nadal. Djokovic doesn't. Serbian player, gritty, tough, but he has the most slams. So is Joker the GOAT in tennis? I say Joker's the GOAT because Nadal was great on one surface, obviously, especially great on the clay. He's won at the U.S. Open and Wimbledon as well, but he was so dominant on one surface, that was clay. He got the majority of the slams on clay. Joker won on all surfaces, so did Federer. That being said, Federer's 20, the Joker's 24, right, in terms of slams, and still going. Joker, he almost won 2 more slams, right? He almost won last year's Wimbledon and this year. So I think he'll get another one, maybe 25. But he's at 24, Federer's at 20. So I have to go with Djokovic, Novak Djokovic, as the GOAT on the tennis side. But now on the women's side, you got Margaret Court and the great Serena Williams. Margaret Court, 24 slams, Serena 23. Margaret Court has more slams than Serena Williams. But Serena is universally considered to be the GOAT in tennis. All right. Some people argue before tennis opened up, right, on the women's side, Court was winning so many Australian Opens when other players in other countries were not playing in those Australian Opens. So it's diminished in some people's minds some of her titles because she won those titles when players were not coming to Australia and traveling as much to play in the Australian Open. When Serena won hers in a time where everybody was playing all the slams, all the best players. That being said, the charisma, what Serena has done for the sport of tennis, her personality, her aura, everything that she represents, she's the GOAT, okay? Less slams, right? And again, less slams based upon the fact that Court had more, but she won some of those when other players were not competing in the Australian. Let's say that. Now, what Serena brings to the table, she's charismatic, she's energetic. She really elevated women's tennis to another level. Then you got players like Billie Jean King, who Title IX and so many of the progressions that we've seen in women's tennis, she was at the forefront of, and she was a champion of, right? And then you have the great Martina Navratilova and the great Chrissy Everett-Lloyd, two people who were and it's great to have rivalries, right? And those are two rivalries that really emboldened tennis and brought tennis to another level as well. That being said, I gotta go with Serena Williams as the tennis GOAT. Now, let's switch gears. Let's talk about Serena Williams as the women's tennis GOAT. By the way, on the men's side, before I switch, do you want to throw Sampras in there as a fourth guy? Right? I don't think so because Sampras has 14 slams. But that one-hand backhand serve and volley game was electric. One of the best servers of all time. But I think Sampras is a distant fourth in that conversation. Anyway, let's go now to the next sport. Let's go to football. Everybody talks about Tom Brady being the GOAT. Tom Brady has the most rings, 7 rings, 6 with the Patriots. He then left, okay, the only player with MVPs, right? Super Bowl MVPs with 2 different teams, okay? It was a debate about whether he was a systematic guy, whether it was about Brady or whether it's about Belichick, the coach. Brady then went to Tampa, won a ring in Tampa, and Belichick has been, on a milk carton ever since in terms of winning and greatness, and even lost his job last year. So, but then you got guys like Jerry Rice, who is and has records that again are unbelievable as a receiver. He was great. So you talk about great football players ever. You got to talk about Brady. You got to talk about Rice, and you got to talk about the great Jim Brown. Listen, Jim Brown is probably the most dominant player, feared player ever to put on the pads and the helmet. Jim Brown, dominant football player, but career wasn't long enough, in my opinion, to be a GOAT. Peyton, listen, and when you talk about and Walter Payton, great running back, sweetness, great player, not to me good enough to be in the GOAT conversation. But when you talk about the GOAT conversation in football, okay, so I don't think Brady is the most talented quarterback that you've ever seen. A lot of guys throw better. A lot of guys may be better quarterbacks from a prototypical perspective, but what he's been able to accomplish is amazing, right? I mean, when he retired, most attempts, completions, passing yards, touchdowns, amazing. And by the way, as good as Jerry Rice may be, or if you want to look at the defensive side of the ball and take some guys on the defensive side of the ball who have been dominant, like Lawrence Taylor, the great Lawrence Taylor, who's maybe the greatest defensive player ever, linebacker for the New York Giants, disruptive, amazing. But this is the problem, okay? In football, right, you got two sides of the ball, offense and defense. I'm not sure that any other offensive player can get this this honor because they don't touch the ball enough. Okay, Jerry Rice sometimes may touch the ball 5 times in a game. It may be electric what he does with those 5 touches, but it's not enough. Even with running backs, okay, if they don't get the ball, the quarterback, every play is involved in. Every play, the ball goes to the quarterback. So it's hard for a non-quarterback guy, in my opinion, to win the award of the GOAT on the football side. It's hard for that to happen. So I'm going with Brady on the football side. All right. Switching gears, new sport. All right. Let's talk hockey. All right. I'm not a big hockey guy. All right. Let me be clear about that. But when you look at hockey, Wayne Gretzky is unanimously known as the GOAT. He's the guy. And you had other great players like Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, another really good player, and Alex Ovechkin, who's playing right now, is another really, really, really good player. And if you look at it, Gretzky is 1 right now in goals, right? Ovechkin is 2, and he may catch him, right? I think he's 150, 160 goals away from catching Gretzky. And Jagr is 2, when Gretzky's number 1 in scoring 2, right? I think he has over 2,000 points. Jagr's at over 1,500. He's number 2, I believe it is. Gretzky 1, Jagr's 2. Now, when it comes to championships, okay, Gretzky only has 4 Stanley Cup championships. Only 4, okay? And that is, they put him in the top 50 in hockey history with 4 Stanley Cup championships, okay, in terms of winning Stanley Cups. Now, and he also transcended the sport with his looks, with his personality, right? What he did for the Edmonton Oilers. Then he came to LA, model wife. All of those things played into Gretzky's greatness, okay? But he has the most points in the history of the sport. So I got to go with Gretzky, right? Jagr can't be ahead of him, okay? Ovechkin won't be ahead of him. I got to go with Gretzky on the hockey side, right? Even though he only has 4 Stanley Cup championships. Give me your thoughts, okay? Now we switch gears. Let's talk baseball, baby. Let's talk baseball, okay? Now, we talk baseball, we're talking about the greatest baseball players ever, all right? Most people look at Babe Ruth, the legendary New York Yankee, 2-way player, by the way, Babe Ruth, as the greatest baseball player ever. Some of the guys we talk about, the great Willie Mays, who recently passed away, may his soul rest in peace, who was a great player as well. The great Hank Aaron, guys like Ty Cobb. These are some of the guys that people look at, Ted Williams, as some of the greatest baseball players of all time. And it's hard to get pitchers in the conversation. Ty Cobb's a great pitcher, obviously. People like Nolan Ryan, unbelievable. But again, pitchers only get the ball every 5 days, where you have position players who play every day. And then Babe Ruth, who was a 2-way player, who pitched and played in the field and hit, obviously, is unique and great. This is why we love Ohtani so much today, because Ohtani hits and pitches even though he's not pitching right now, because he's recovering from Tommy John surgery on his arm. That being the case, you look at a guy like Babe Ruth. I mean, legendary numbers. I think he batted 342. I think he had 714 home runs, which, is nuts. But on the pitching side, I think he was 94 and 46. I think I wrote that down, with a 2.28 ERA, which to me is unbelievable that a guy was able to be so good, right, as a pitcher and as a hitter, and as a baseball player. And then the great Willie Mays, who was a 300 hitter. But Willie Mays is probably the best defensive player to ever, right, don and put on a baseball uniform, the great Willie Mays. So now the question is this, right? Babe Ruth, great, batted great, was the home run champion for a lot of years. And then you got guys like Hank Aaron, right? Hank Aaron, who's a home run champion. But you look at some of these guys, right? Well, Hank Aaron's a home run champion that people love to say is the home run champion. But anyway, that being the case, you look at what we're talking about here, and you think, okay, Willie Mays, great in the field, right? Great on offense and great on defense. Elite on both sides of the field, both sides of baseball. Does that make him the best? Or Babe Ruth, who hit and pitched, wasn't as good, obviously, defensively as the great Willie Mays, but he hit at a high level, right? And pitched at a high level, okay? And by the way, Babe Ruth had the personality running around New York going crazy, Babe Ruth, right? With his relationships and who he was and the commercials. So, do you go Babe Ruth? Do you go Willie Mays? I love Willie Mays, but I gotta go Babe Ruth. I gotta go Babe Ruth. The great Bambino, Babe Ruth, New York guy. I'm a Yankee guy too, right? So I gotta admit that I'm a Yankee guy. But Willie Mays, formidable number 2 for me. All right? And we're gonna wrap this up with one last GOAT conversation. And that is golf. Let's talk a little bit about golf. I'm not a golf expert, but I know a little bit about golf, right? And you got in the conversation Jack Nicklaus, and you have the great Tiger Woods. Jack Nicklaus and the great Tiger Woods. Now, with Tiger, again, Tiger is transcending personality, being a black golfer. The deals that he was able to do, what he was able to bring to golf has been unbelievable, okay? But if you look at the numbers, and again, we don't know what are the metrics that we use, okay? When you look at who has the most majors in golf, okay? Nicklaus has 18, Tiger Woods 15, okay? Like slams in tennis, majors in golf, Nicklaus is number 1, and Tiger's not catching up to him, right? Tiger won't win another major, right? He's not at that level play anymore. He won't. And then when you look at overall wins, forget about just the majors. Overall wins, Sam Snead and Tiger Woods are tied at 88. I don't think Tiger Woods either will ever win another tournament, right? Any more golf tournaments, because I just think that he's no longer good enough. But him and Snead are 88 and 88, and I believe Nicklaus is 73. So Tiger has won more tournaments than Nicklaus, but Nicklaus has won more majors, okay? So who you got? Now let me just say this, all right? In this, I gotta have Tiger, because the numbers are comparable, right? But man, what Tiger did personality-wise and for the sport of golf is unprecedented and unparalleled. So I gotta rock with the boy Tiger Woods on this one. Now, some of his other shenanigans, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. The boy Tiger's a little crazy, right? Off the course. But that being said, Tiger is the GOAT when it comes to golf, right? So listen, this GOAT conversation, I feel like, right, I'm going to keep talking about this over a period of time. I love to get you guys' feedback, you know what I mean? And what should be the standard? How should we determine who are GOATs? What are the metrics we should use? And should those same standards be applied across all sports? You let me know. You let me know what you're thinking. All right. I appreciate you all. Let's keep getting it 30 plus. We going to 50. We going to 30 million. We going all the way up, baby. I'm out. Love.